going on, everybody? Welcome to the DFS Dose YouTube channel, to the late night Saturday live stream. I'm Ben Hauver, and today I'm joined by absolutely nobody. Okay? Jared says the goats of cash. Unfortunately, it's just one goat today. My good friend, my partner, my podcast co-host, Joey, is out and about right now living his life. He is in Charlotte to view this Patriots-Panthers game in person. You know, he drove 11 hours to see Mac Jones and Sam Darnold face off in what is easily the most boring game of the slate. Couldn't be me, but shout out to my boy. He's a real-life Patriots fan. And so here I am doing the stream on my lonesome. All love to my boy Big Joe. He'll be back on the podcast this week. He'll be back on the stream next week. But in the meantime, flying solo. If anybody is in the chat, you ever have any questions throughout the point, you want to talk anything about week 9, you have a tough 2v2, anything like that you want to get through, drop a comment and I will be happy to answer. What's going on, Ben? Big Dex. Big Dex, that's my song right there. Shout out to Big Dex. I heard he's going to be buying Call of Duty Vanguard soon and we'll be able to play, but he hasn't gotten it yet. So PBR, of course. That's a staple. That's a staple of the show, PBR. You already know the vibes. All right, let's get into things. I'm going to start off here at the quarterback position. And so for this video, I think I'm going to focus mostly on strictly tournaments just because I did a solo video already on cash games, which I do every single week. So if you guys are really interested in my cash game thoughts, I would say check out the video on the YouTube channel now, just because I already gave my own opinions. It's different when Joey's on here and we can sort of bounce back and forth. But if you want just my straight opinions on cash games, you can already find a video on that. So I'm mostly going to focus on tournaments when going through positions. But if anybody has questions, I'll definitely address them. Jared says, would you say Jordan Love is too risky in cash and go with Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts instead? Yeah, I do. I think so. The thing with cash and the pay down options, and I do think Jordan Love is the guy that you would want to target if you are punting it off in cash games. It's a good spot. The Packers offense is fully healthy. They got MVS back. Devontae Adams is going to play. So, it's a good matchup too. Casey's defense has been dog water all year. So I think it's a good spot for Jordan Love. And at 4,400, he doesn't have to do much to pay that off. But we just don't know what this offense is going to look like with Jordan Love. We have absolutely no idea. Are they going to try and scale up the run game in this spot? Is it going to be an A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones type of game? I think that's very possible. I think it might be likely even. I think they might want to hide Jordan Love as much as they can going into Arrowhead. It's a tough spot. And just without having him ever started an NFL game, we don't have a baseline for what this offense looks like with Jordan Love. So it's really risky to try and project him. He could totally bust in this spot. I think that's absolutely within the range of outcomes. So I don't feel comfortable playing him, especially because Lamar Jackson is in such a good spot and the other positions are loaded with value. Tight end, we've got a Stone Cold Lockett, 2,600. Wide receiver, we've got 6 viable guys under 6K that are actually good plays with good floors and good ceilings. So I think that you have the money pretty easily to pay up to Lamar Jackson this week. I like Jalen Hurts as well. I know that we talk about him a lot on this podcast and on the stream and stuff like that. He's been a machine, scores 20 plus points on DraftKings every single week. So I think Jalen Hurts is good. He finally had that game last week where he scored under 20, even though the Eagles put up 44. And I think that we can just sort of look at that as a clear cut outlier. I think that he's going to, do pretty well in this spot against the Chargers. It's the only game with a total above 50 on the main slate. So I like Hurts, but Lamar Jackson, goddamn, dude, he's in just such a good spot. I think he's the easy play in cash this week. Their offense is fully healthy. Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, Sammy Watkins is back. Rashad Bateman is going to be playing in this game almost certainly. So the Vikings have injuries on defense. And the Ravens secondary is more beatable than it's ever been. So, if they get pushed by the Vikings, which I think they are likely to, this could just be an absolute blowout up spot for Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar is the clear-cut play in cash games. That's definitely where I'm leaning. I'm almost certain that I'll be rolling with Lamar come tomorrow. But from a tournament perspective, I think that, Lamar is still a guy that I want to have exposure to, even though he's chalky. His stacking partners are not going to be. And like I said, the secondary of the Baltimore defense is going to be weakened right now. So I like Justin Jefferson as a bring back. Joey mentioned him on the podcast as one of his favorite plays. And I think he's a high ceiling wide receiver with, likely to be under 5% owned. So Lamar Jackson, I still want to play him in tournaments. I think that you can stack him with Mark Andrews at sub 10%. You can stack him with Marquise Brown sub 10% and just get unique even with Lamar in there. And Murray is out, maybe a rushing touchdown. Yeah, exactly. Like their running backs are Tyson, Lev Bell, Devontae Freeman. It's just dog water. Like the expectation is boosted for Lamar in this spot. Absolutely. But at the quarterback position, other than Lamar Jackson, some of the guys that I'm going to be targeting, I mean, I want exposure to both sides of the LA Philly game. I think that is a standout spot. Stuff like Jalen Hurts stacked with Goddard is super good. I like Herbert doubles with Mike Williams, and, you could double it up with, Jared Cook, or if you want to pay up to Keenan as well, you can do that. But I think that the main player that interests me the most right now is Dak Prescott. I love Dallas doubles this week. He's super intriguing because the Dallas doubles are like the best leverage spot that you're going to find on the entire slate, because Zeke is going to be the highest owned running back far and away. It's not going to be close. Albert O is going to be the highest owned tight end. He's going to be the highest owned player on the slate. And Amari Cooper is going to carry a ton of ownership because DraftKings priced him, as you can see here, at $5,700. It's an egregious price tag coming off of a week where he had 13 targets, 29 DraftKings points. So there's a lot of chalky pieces in this game, and for good reason. Zeke is a super strong running back play. I think he's a lock in cash games at 7K with Dallas having the total that they have, with Dallas being at home, with Dallas being 10-point favorites, with Dallas wanting to run the ball whenever they have the chance to, be a run first team and game scripts that they're in control of. Zeke is a smash in cash games. But this could also be a spot where Dak Prescott gets there even without a ton of volume, or say the Broncos offense is good and pushes Dallas to be more pass happy. Well, if that's the case, then Dak Prescott is just an absolute smash this week. He's affordable. He's in a price range that I think a lot of people are going to be avoiding. I think that for the most part, people are going to be either paying up to the Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar tier, or paying down to some of these value plays. Jordan Love, who we mentioned, Daniel Jones is projecting really well. Tua could be interesting, although I think that his hand injury and some of the concerns there, Devontae Parker added to IR, is going to keep Tua's ownership in check for sure. Who else is interesting? I know there's one I'm missing. Oh, Tyrod Taylor is somebody a lot of people are going to play. I mean, God, playing Tyrod Taylor in 2021, it couldn't be me, but I know some people are going to go there. So, yeah, I think that really this range gets sort of overlooked. Joe Burrow's interesting. Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, going to go overlooked in ownership. And Prescott is so good, like I said, because of the leverage. Like, you can play that game, and that game can hit in a lot of different ways. And you could get paid off just in an absolutely huge way if, say, the touchdowns go to Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb instead of Amari Cooper and Zeke. And if you're capitalizing off that, I think it's just got such an amazing spot, in my opinion. So the Dak doubles are probably the most interesting thing, in my opinion. If you're getting away from chalkier builds with like Lamar Jackson and Jordan Love and stuff like that, Schultz is going to be virtually unowned as well, coming in here at 4,800. Like, a lot of people are going to want to either get up to this tier or punt it off to, Tyler Conklin or obviously Albert O, who's going to be the highest owned player on the slate. But that's a game that I really like. And as far as, the punt options, Jordan Love, I'm a little bit surprised by some of the ownership projections. Like, I thought for sure that Jordan Love was going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate, just because of the price and because of the potential game environment. If you do believe that Green Bay can put up any sort of fight against KC. And I mean, there's no reason to think that they can't, really, because KC's defense is horrible. And Mahomes has been struggling, as everybody knows. So are we going to see a game where, Jordan Love is actually able to stay competitive? If that's the case at 4,400, he doesn't even need to have a monster game at that price tag. Like, if Jordan Love gets you 20 points at 4,400 and allows you to like make a super team all around it, that's incredibly interesting. Devontae Adams at 8,200, Tyreek Hill 7,900. You could play both of them with Jordan Love pretty easily and still fit in some other studs on the side. So I like that, just because the potential ceiling is so high that if Jordan Love has a good game, it's going to be really hard for any other quarterback to match it from a value perspective, from a points per dollar perspective. So I do think you have to have some exposure to him. But a lot of these other cheap guys, I think you're just burning lineups if you play them, to be completely honest. Like Tyrod Taylor, absolutely no shot. I'm not playing Daniel Jones. I know that he's like projecting well, but no thank you. The only other guy, I guess, besides Jordan Love that's in this cheap price range that I find a little bit interesting is Teddy Bridgewater. Like I mentioned, this is one of my favorite games. And he doesn't have a ceiling that he's going to hit very often, but we have seen it. Like, you know, they've allowed him to throw 49 times in this spot. He had 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. So, you know, if you double stack Teddy with like Albert O and Jerry Judy and bring it back with your Dallas option of choice, whether it's CD or Cooper or Lamb, I think that's pretty interesting as well. But I think for the most part, the quarterbacks that I'm going to have the most exposure to in cash games, it's Lamar. And in tournaments, it's Lamar and it's Herbert and it's Dak. It's a little bit of Jalen Hurts. And maybe in really large field stuff, the Kirk Cousin doubles to get some exposure to the other side of the ball there. Moving on to running back. And again, like I said, I'm going to keep it pretty quick as far as cash game consideration, just because I have the solo video, which you can find on this YouTube channel. By the way, if anybody has any questions at all in the chat, feel free to ask at any point. I'll address anything. DFS, redraft, whatever is on your mind at this point. But running back for cash games, this is the tightest pool of guys that I've had in consideration all year. I've got 4 guys on my list that I think are really viable in cash games. It's Kamara, it's Zeke, it's Eckler, and it's Gaskin. Ezekiel Elliott at 7K is, I mean, his role has been increasing in the pass game, and you just can't write up a better spot for him, right? Dallas has the second highest implied team total on the slate, 29.75. They're at home. They're 10-point favorites. He's got the goal line role. Everything about this just really stands out to me with Ezekiel Elliott. I think that you lock him and then you figure out what you want to do with your RB2 spot. The guy that stands out to me the most is Austin Eckler. I think that we're most likely deciding between Eckler and Kamara just because the way that the build works out. There's so much value at wide receiver, and there's like almost no viable value at running back. So I feel a lot more comfortable living in the 5K range at wide receiver this week than I do living in the 6K range at running back. We don't have Darrell Henderson this week. We don't have DeAndre Swift this week. You know, we don't have these guys that are in smash spots that we've had over the past couple of weeks, seemingly underpriced every single week. So you're going to be paying up at running back. I think you start with Zeke, and then you're kind of choosing between Eckler and Kamara. And just on the surface, it seems pretty easy to me to go with Eckler there. You know, Eckler is kind of right now what Kamara used to be with his role as a receiver. Like he's going to be getting a decent amount of touches on the ground. You know, he's going to get 14, 15 touches on the ground. Here, I'll pull up his game card here for everybody watching. So, you know, he's going to have these games where he's still utilized on the ground, 15, 17. Like this is unfortunate 6, but this was a terrible spot for him. But last week, like if this is the kind of usage you're getting, you're ecstatic at that at 7,900, 11 attempts, 10 targets. Like God, give that to me all day, every day. And the way the Eagles defense plays specifically is they try and limit stuff deep down the field. They try and limit aggressive passing. Justin Herbert's dealing with a hand issue. Maybe that's a factor as well. Maybe that affects how much he's going to be passing deep down the field. Maybe he is a little bit less aggressive than we would expect him to be. And if that's the case, then God, wheels up for Austin Eckler. Could be a 10 target spot for him again. There's doubts with Kamara. It's a good spot, like seemingly a great spot going up against Atlanta. There's no Derrick Henry on the slate. Christian McCaffrey just got reintroduced, and I'll talk about that in a minute here as we get to tournaments. I don't think he's really cash game viable this week, even though the price is good. So definitely talk about CMC in a second here. But, you know, just comparing Eckler to Kamara, we just have no idea what it's going to look like this week with Trevor Siemian starting. Taysom Hill is still going to be involved. You know, we saw 4 targets last week. It looked like things were turning around for a little bit here. 8 targets, then they had the bye, came back. You know, during the bye, they were like, yo, we need to get Kamara re-involved. And that's what they did, 11 targets. But that was the Jameis Winston offense. And we have no idea what this offense is going to look like. It's going to look like a lot of Trevor Siemian probably failing. And then it's going to look like Taysom Hill, rich as hell, $140 million contract coming in for, select packages. I don't know why they paid him that, but they did. And I think that Taysom Hill gets utilized on the goal line, and I think that is sort of a knock to Alvin Kamara that Eckler just frankly doesn't have, because there's nobody else in that Chargers backfield. We don't think Justin Herbert's going to be vulturing very much of the rushing touchdown expectation, if any. Probably none. So Austin Eckler is just a lot safer to me in cash games. He's cheaper. I think you don't overthink it. And that's really where I'm leaning in cash games right now at the running back position is Zeke and Eckler. And then, the big question I think that a lot of people are going to have to answer is, do you prefer Tyreek Hill to Alvin Kamara? You're Joey Carrion in the chat. Joey, I don't know if you caught it earlier, but I was just questioning your life choices about driving 11 hours to see Mac Jones and Sam Darnold face off. Seems like a pretty tricky life situation, I'm not going to lie. Imagine just being home, sitting comfortably watching Red Zone. That's the wave. Eckler, Zeke, cash locks for sure. Good to know that my boy is on the same page as me. In tournaments, things got shook up a little bit. A few hours ago, it was announced that Christian McCaffrey was going to be playing in this game. He's $8,000. Okay. He's going to be on a snap count. I think we're almost sure that he's going to be on a snap count. It came down to the wire as to whether or not he was even going to play in this game. Hubbard has been bad. Sam Darnold's going to play, though, which, I guess boosts this offense. I mean, Darnold's been bad too, but he's not as bad as PJ Walker, former XFL legend, current NFL scrub. So, I mean, I think that this is a spot where Christian McCaffrey can still rack up points. And the question you're asking yourself is, what is his ownership going to be? Is his ownership going to be 15%? Because the news came out so early on Saturday that everybody's had time to, adjust to the fact that McCaffrey's playing. Like, I really wish this news had come out tomorrow morning and we would get, a sub 10% Zeke or a sub 10% CMC. I think CMC pushes 10 to 12 to 15% ownership just because the timing of the news coming out. And that's really tricky to me. It's really tricky. I mean, the interesting thing is I think that CMC being active and people seeing the price tag, like a certain amount of people are going to play him. So I think that he sort of sucks away some of the ownership from these other guys. Like, I think that he keeps Eckler's ownership in check a little bit. Like, I think Eckler goes from being somebody who could have been around, maybe 30% in tournaments, especially smaller field stuff, to sort of getting capped at like 25 at the absolute highest, because a lot of people are going to try and make that pivot to CMC. I think Dalvin Cook, who was sort of the obvious pivot in this range, I think, and, he was going to be drawing some decent ownership, like nothing crazy, but probably 10 to 15%. I think that, him and CMC maybe level out closer to 10 each, because now there's extra, an extra player with a high ceiling that we can play. So the bottom line is that Christian McCaffrey is $8,000 on DraftKings and he's playing. That's all you really have to know. $8,000, Christian McCaffrey. I would be crazy to not have some exposure to him, but I don't think he's cash game viable just because we don't know exactly how much he's going to be utilized. And Matt Rule has talked about putting him on a snap count. So that risk, in my opinion, sort of mitigates things and makes him a tournament only play, but a tournament play that's very interesting with the ceiling that we know McCaffrey has. Lamar, Eckler, Zeke, Cooks, Brandon Cooks, I'm assuming, Cooper, Higgins, Alberto, Waddle, and Chiefs, D and Cash. I mean, yeah, that's fine. It's good. It's very similar to what I think I'll be running a couple, maybe like a 3v3, I think, but you've got the right core. Absolutely. I love that core. The other player that I mentioned who was in cash game consideration for me that I didn't really talk about was Myles Gaskin at 5,800. Miami has a pretty high team total, 26. They're favored by almost a touchdown here at home against Houston. It's a really good spot for Myles Gaskin. I think Tyrod Taylor back could make this game a little bit more sneaky competitive than we were expecting it to be. And that's what we want to see for Gaskin. Like, we don't want it to be a blowout, because in that point, I think that him and Salvin Ahmed are going to be pretty much 50-50 in terms of the work utilization split. If it's a close game, I think we see Gaskin out there a lot more. He's going to be catching passes. Tua, like Justin Herbert, is dealing with a hand issue, and I think that maybe that, sort of caps how aggressive he is passing the ball deep down the field. No Devontae Parker, no Will Fuller. Targets are really going to be consolidated, I think, between Waddle, Gesicki, and Gaskin. So I like that a lot, but, really, I think this is a 2 running back week in cash. And I think that the 2 guys that we're going to be playing are pretty obvious, as I've talked about. So in terms of GPP pivots, I really don't like too much. I think that the ownership on some of the guys that were really going to be good pivots is getting juiced a little bit. Cordero Patterson, for example, I'm not too interested in him. I'm not too interested in that game in general. I think it's just like Saints defense is going to choke the life out of Atlanta, and Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill is so unexciting on the other end. Saints offense in general is just, a complete unknown at this point. Nick Chubb looks like his ownership is going to be getting steamed a little bit. I was on him earlier in the week, but if his ownership is like borderline chalk, and like not Zeke Eckler chalk, but like that next tier, then I really don't want to play him either. Dearness Johnson has like essentially taken the Kareem Hunt role. So, nothing has really changed with Nick Chubb. He's not getting any kind of boost. Right here, Dalvin Cook. Okay. Everyone's going to be like, oh, let me play Christian McCaffrey at 8K. No. We're going to play Dalvin Cook at 7,700. When are you going to get a player like Dalvin Cook at 7,700? Fully healthy, ready to go, raring to go. It's not the best matchup. But God, Dalvin Cook as a bring back with your Lamar Jackson doubles, tell me that doesn't sound just absolutely sexy. I love it. And I think outside of the Dallas-Denver game, the Baltimore Minnesota game is going to be the most targeted game in my lineups, and Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are my 2 favorite bringbacks. So I'm definitely going to have exposure to Dalvin Cook as a pivot. But in general, the one thing I will say on this slate is that I feel more comfortable eating the running back chalk because I think the pool of players that we're considering is so weak and the wide receiver pool is so deep that you can get different off the chalk at wide receiver a lot easier than you can get different off the chalk at running back. And Zeke is the only guy whose ownership I see getting like absolutely crazy. Like if you're playing in smaller field stuff, which is what I tend to focus on personally. So like say, 800 or less people maybe in the tournament, I think Zeke could, touch 40% and stuff like that. I think Eckler is probably capped at 25 at this point. But Dalvin Cook is going to be sub 10. Alvin Kamara, I think his ownership projection is dropping. Christian McCaffrey is going to absorb some of this stuff. So Zeke is the only guy that I think we have to really figure out whether or not we can eat the chalk like in a substantial way, like Eckler at 25%. That's not crazy. So yeah, I feel okay about the running back chalk this week in tournaments. I'm not going to lie, because wide receiver is so deep and there's so many ways you can go, as we'll get to in a minute. But I'll just throw out a couple more names of some guys that I'm going to sprinkle into my tournaments. Aaron Jones, I think, as sort of like the potential centerpiece of the Packers offense with the coaching staff, potentially, likely, in my opinion, to try and lean on the run and hide Jordan Love. I think Aaron Jones is really interesting this week. He's not going to be targeted a lot at 7,200. And even if this is a spot where I'm wrong in the way that I see Jordan Love being utilized by Matt LaFleur and the Packers offensive coaching staff, and they are forced to pass, well, guess what? Aaron Jones is going to be involved in the passing game too. So he's game script independent in a game that we expect KC to put up points in. Aaron Jones, if they're trailing, he's catching passes. If they're winning, it's because of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, most likely, not Jordan Love. So I think Aaron Jones is interesting with a very low ownership tag. Josh Jacobs is projecting well. I'm not too interested in that game in general. It's okay. Like I don't think Josh Jacobs is a bad play this week. He's 6,200. Obviously, we've got the Henry Ruggs stuff, but Henry Ruggs only had a 14% target share, so it's not like this offense is really going to change too much because of it. This is what concerns me with Josh Jacobs. The 1 target games, the 2 target games, but then we've also got this in here. If we're talking about a guy who can get a decent workload on the ground and has multiple touchdown upside in a good matchup, nonetheless, against the Giants, if he's getting 5 targets, then he's a smash play. It's just a matter of whether or not you believe that that type of usage is going to hold. It was kind of middling last week with 3 targets. It's like, it depends whether or not you think that Josh Jacobs is suddenly going to be more utilized in the passing game than we've seen in years past. I'm skeptical of it. I think it's possible. We'll have some more information. We'll talk about that on the Monday show with interesting stats and storylines. But Josh Jacobs, borderline interesting at 6,200. I'm not crazy about it. There's one cheap running back that I like this week. Only one. Only one guy that I'm going to be using to flip the build in my contrarian things where I want to pay up for multiple high-priced wide receivers or maybe a high-priced tight end off of Albert O, and I need to save some salary at running back. There's one guy I like. Is it James Conner? No, it's not. Is it Chase Edmonds, who I hear a lot of DFS touts touting? It's not. It's this guy right here. Zachary Moss. Okay. Zach Moss has quietly had 4+ targets in 3 straight games. Even had 7 targets last week, as you can see right here. He has multiple touchdown upside in a given week. Saw it right here, 2 touchdowns. And this is a great spot, okay? The Bills are massive favorites, 14.5 points against the Jags, 31.5 implied team total, highest on the slate. And because of that, I think that, Moss could easily find 2 touchdowns in this spot. That situation playing out is not hard to imagine. I think it's relatively realistic. He's kind of like Myles Gaskin light, where I think Gaskin's a more talented player, but Zach Moss obviously benefits from being on a significantly better offense and should see quite a bit more scoring opportunity. And if his targets remain like this, 4 as a floor with the upside to get into that 7 or 8 range, then I think Zach Moss is super interesting. For tournaments, he gives you some good exposure to the Bills offense, which we definitely want because this is a spot where we know there's going to be points. It's just hard to pinpoint who you want to play. Like some people are going to chase an Emmanuel Sanders bounce back. He's 5,600. It's good leverage, I guess, off the other chalky 5K wide receivers. But as we saw, his floor is absolutely in the dirt. 0 points last week. Cole Beasley, maybe. But I think you need volume for Beasley to get there. He's not going to get there off efficiency. Steph Diggs. He's going to be popular. He's a good play, high ceiling. I don't know. Going to have some ownership. Zach Moss is the sneaky piece of the Bills offense, and he knocks out a running back spot and allows you to spend up to some of the high-priced wide receivers, which I will touch on right now. Let's shift this over to wide receivers. And the story of the week at wide receiver is this. Absolutely loaded. 6K Marquise Brown. Why are Zeke and Cooper getting so much steam? Do I have a favorite? I mean, I personally think that they're both essentially locks. Why is Zeke getting so much steam? Because A, the running back pool is really weak this week. His price is good, 7K. It's better than the price tags of these guys up here that are the other like really standout plays. And Dallas has shown repeatedly this year that if they have the ability to control the game, they're going to lean on Zeke. They're going to be a run-first team. Dak is only going to be passing the ball at a high rate when they're in comeback mode or when they have to. And Dallas is a 10-point favorite this week at home. So, that would lead you to believe that they're going to be in control of this game. And if that's the case, it should be a big Zeke game. So the projected game script, the projected points that are going to be scored in this game, Dallas has the second highest implied team total on the slate. And the fact that the running back pool is weaker than usual this week, it all points to Zeke being an absolutely phenomenal play. And for Amari Cooper, I mean, it's pretty simple. The price tag is just ridiculous. He's 5,700. Explain it to me, please. Please, somebody explain it to me. The last time he was on the main slate, he was 6K, and then he followed it out right here with 13 targets, 8 for 122 and 1, 29 DraftKings points. Like, bruh, what are we doing? Why is he getting a price decrease? Please, somebody explain it to me. Short answer is they both project well. Yeah, I know. But I like to explain things, I'm a talker. I'm just trying to fill the time. If I answered every question with like, just look at the projections, well, I mean, shit. I guess you could do that. Probably should do that. But maybe you like hearing my voice. Anyways, alas, let me get back to whatever I was saying. I guess what I was saying was that this range is the story of the wide receiver pool. Amari Cooper, 5.7, absolute standout. Jalen Waddle, 5,600, absolute standout. T. Higgins, I mean, you want to talk about projections. T. Higgins at 5,300 is projecting as like an insane value on DraftKings. And we talk about it every single week. You know, the underlying usage, the targets, the target share in this offense, T. Higgins, it's got to come around. He's not a scrub. His lack of production should not be matching the opportunity that he's been having, and it's got to bounce back at some point. T at 5,300, I think, is a stone cold lock. I think Amari Cooper is a stone cold lock. And then I think we're finding two other wide receivers to plug in for cash games. Some of the guys that I'm considering, like I mentioned, Jalen Waddle's interesting at 5,600. He just gets a ton of targets, even though they're not super high quality targets. I mean, they got to throw the ball to him. There's no Will Fuller right now, and there's no Devontae Parker right now. He's the guy. He's going to soak up so many targets. So Waddle, certainly interesting. Kadarius Toney, I don't know. I don't know about that one. A lot of people are into it. Not I. And I'll just leave it at that. Jarvis Landry, 5,100. I think that's super interesting. He's off the injury report. He's got 9 targets per game over the last 2, 8 targets, 10 targets, respectively. He doesn't have the same ceiling that some of these other guys have. So in tournaments, I think that Landry is the easiest fade of the group. But in cash games, he's super interesting. No Odell. DPJ is questionable in this spot. And Jarvis Landry is he's a good value at 5,100. Some of the other guys, I'll keep going. Like I said, this range is absolutely loaded. Like, we never see this on DraftKings where there are this many guys with good target projections, and not only good target projections, but also good ceilings. Like, these guys can hit ceilings as well. You're not just like punting it off. Now, do you prefer 3 running backs, 7K plus, or 4 wide receivers and pay up to Hill? Yeah, I am paying up to Hill this week. And I'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to finish highlighting the value guys that I think are in play. There are 2 more, in my opinion, that I think are really strong plays. Or 1 more, I should say. And that's Jerry Judy. Although, with the way that things are shaking out right now, I think Judy is going to be completely under-owned compared to these other guys. So, like, Judy might be the tournament play if you can't fit him in cash. But Judy, coming off of last week, it was his first game back in quite some time. Obviously, you see it right here. He played in week 1. You know, missed a handful of weeks, comes back last week, played 72% of snaps. You know, you look at this like, oh, only 4 targets, but that was tied for a team lead. They just did not have to pass the ball against Washington at all. And this is a spot going into Dallas, 10-point dogs. They're going to have to pass the ball. And I think that Jerry Judy bounces back in a big way this week. So he's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, regardless of position. I think he's cash viable, but if you're getting the ownership discount, he's like a stone cold smash in tournaments, especially, you know, as a correlated piece with your Dallas stuff, if you're into that game the way that I am. Going back to Joey's question here. Do you prefer 3 running backs, 7K, or 4 wide receivers and pay up to Hill? That's really the question. And I think it's a pretty direct question. It's, do you prefer Tyreek Hill at 7,900, or do you prefer Alvin Kamara at 8.2? Like I listed at the running back position, I think there are just so many holes that you can poke in Alvin Kamara. Trevor Siemian, we don't know what this offense is going to look like with him. We don't know how involved Taysom Hill is going to be. They paid him $140 million, and he's, you know, the 3rd string quarterback on the team, but they say they're going to use him in certain packages. You know, he has a game this year where he has 2 rushing touchdowns, even when he was the backup to Jameis. So, you know, if they're going to be trying to utilize him in the goal line, that just cuts Kamara's ceiling pretty extensively. And even though in cash games we're looking for a good floor, when you're paying 8K plus for a player, or 7,900 in Tyreek Hill's case, you do need some ceiling as well to justify playing that guy. Tyreek Hill, 7,900, coming off of an 18 target game where he failed to put up over 100 yards and get the bonus. I don't think that happens again. If Tyreek Hill gets 18 targets, I would expect him to be putting up the bonus. I think that even though he put up 27.4 points on DraftKings in that spot, I think you could say that he ran bad. 18 targets for Tyreek Hill could be a 50 spot. Like, absolutely no joke, no cap, no boost. Tyreek Hill could put up 50 with 18 targets. Tyreek Hill could put up 50 with like 15 targets. So Tyreek Hill to me, 7,900. Green Bay is without Jair Alexander. I think this is a statement game for the Chiefs offense. You know, Patrick Mahomes desperately needs to change the narrative. Okay. I swear to God, they're talking about this dude's brother and his TikTok more than they're talking about him. The only time they bring up Patrick Mahomes these days is to say, you know, why is this Chiefs offense not the same? What's the problem? What's wrong with Mahomes? Okay. This is the spot. Green Bay is coming into town. They're big favorites. No Aaron Rodgers. Bad defense. Bad secondary for the Packers without Alexander. Tyreek Hill should be able to absolutely abuse the corners in Green Bay, or for Green Bay in KC, I should say. So Tyreek Hill to me, much better pay up option than Alvin Kamara. I think that he is the priority play at wide receiver this week for cash, but then I've pretty much highlighted all the guys that I think are cash viable in tournaments. This range, specifically, these three guys right here, bro. Justin Jefferson is 7,500, has one of the best ceilings in the NFL, going up against a beatable Baltimore secondary in a spot where they're going to have to pay up. They're going to have to keep up with a Ravens offense that frankly just outmatches the Vikings defense. It's going to be under 5% owned. Okay. It's going to be under 5% owned. Let me say that again in case you didn't hear me. Justin Jefferson. Another player who's going to be under 5% owned. Mike Williams. Dog. You kidding me? You kidding me? This is the ultimate Mike Williams spot going up against Philly. How low can we go for defense this week for cash? I think that we go to the Chiefs. 2,300. They're going to be massive chalk. They're going to be so chalky that you can't play them in tournaments. They're going to be like 30%. It's going to be like that week where the Cardinals were just absurd chalk a couple weeks ago. But at 2,300 at home, going up against the backup quarterback in Jordan Love, stone cold smash. I honestly don't think that there's anybody even in consideration besides the Chiefs for cash. It gets interesting when you start talking about tournaments, and I think that you can't play them because of the ownership. But yeah, I mean, you're not going lower than the Chiefs. Like, you're not playing either of these teams, obviously, but I don't think you're going above the Chiefs either. Might as well just X all this out. I wish I could just X this out for cash games. Kansas City Chiefs. Opinions, Kupp or Hill, 1A, 1B, but who do I like better? I like Hill better just because of the game environment. Just because I think that it's like absolutely going to be a statement game for the Chiefs and their offense. Stafford's been dealing with an injury all week. He is going to play, but I don't know. Please don't make me say anything bad about Cooper Kupp. I don't want to do it. Cooper Kupp is the GOAT. Luckily, he's not on the main slate, so I don't have to really think about it too hard. I mean, I don't play like, you know, the full slates, the slates that include Sunday night and Monday night. So I've honestly barely looked into Cooper Kupp. Like, I've been so focused on the main slate. So I would lean Hill just for that reason alone, but like Cooper Kupp, I honestly don't even know what his DraftKings price is. I haven't looked at that slate at all. So I'm sorry, but I'm ill prepared to answer that question. I imagine he's like 9K though, right? So if he's significantly more expensive than Hill, then Hill for sure. As I was saying though, I talked about two of the guys that I really love paying all the way up at quarterback. In cash games, I'm playing Lamar Jackson. Yes, I am paying up. I think that you're just looking for a lot if you play for Jordan Love. You can get there in tournaments. Thoughts on Agnew? He's been solid since Chark went down, and snap counts are pretty high. Let me actually take a look at that. Let me take a look at what Jamal Agnew's snap count was last week. I know that he had a pretty good game. I mean, he's an explosive player, no doubt about it. Yeah, God, I mean, 12 targets last week. Snaps were looking good. What do we have? Goddamn. 72%. Yeah, that's good. I think that it could be hard for the Jags offense to be successful in this spot. We've seen the Bills just lock teams down over and over and over again. I think it's pretty tough to bank on any Jacksonville Jaguar player this week, to be honest with you. I mean, I haven't really thought about playing Agnew. I haven't thought about playing, Visca or Marvin Jones. And I think that the Josh Allen to Diggs stack is just really expensive, and you're not getting a significant ownership discount, and you're not really getting, I mean, you are getting a ceiling with Josh Allen that very few other quarterbacks have, but I just don't know if it's worth it. Like I would rather stack Lamar Jackson with some cheaper with some cheaper lower owned stacking partners like Marvin Jones, or I'm reading this other guy's comment. Let me get that off the screen. Like Mark Andrews, than paying up to like play a chalkier Stephon Diggs and a more expensive Josh Allen. It just seems like that's the way to go. Cheapest wide receiver for cash this week when playing 4 wide receivers. Also love your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. Really, we do, from the bottom of my heart, and Joey's as well. I'll speak for him on that. The cheapest wide receiver that I'm considering for cash, and like I actually feel pretty gross about it. I would like to say that it was Jerry Judy, because he's the last guy that I feel super comfortable about. But you can scroll down a little bit, and the other 2 players that I think are like interesting is Rondale Moore. And I'll talk about Rondale Moore here for a second, because, you know, we're still waiting on the Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins news. You need so much to break right for Rondale Moore to be a good play. You know, first of all, I'm not playing a single Arizona Cardinal if Colt McCoy is the start. I'll just say that right now. I'm not playing Rondale. I'm not playing Christian Kirk or any of these, you know, chase out nobody if Kyler's out. And if Hopkins is in and Kyler is in, I think Rondale Moore is definitely not cash viable, you know, absolutely not. But there's this one mystical scenario where Hopkins misses and Kyler plays. And in that scenario, I think that Rondale Moore is super interesting at 4,200. And if that happens, I think Rondale Moore, his ownership gets steamed in tournaments as well. Like his ownership right now is like projecting to be a little over 8 or 9%. Like he might be like 10% come tomorrow. I think it depends on when we get the Kyler Murray news. Like if you know, 1 p.m. lock happens and we don't know, and it's like a game time decision and we don't find out until the end because it is a 4 p.m. game, then I think that, you know, he's going to be incredibly interesting if you can get him at low ownership with Kyler in and Hopkins out. But like the thing about that is you're asking for so much to go right for him to be a great play that it's like, I don't know, man. I think that the guy that I would consider a little bit more is Rashad Bateman. He's been just consistent since he got back. I mean, it's not like the targets are amazing, 6 in each spot, and Sammy Watkins is coming back. Bateman missed practice on Friday, but Harbaugh said that the injury is not too serious and that, you know, he's most likely going to play. It's a great spot. I think, you know, Baltimore is just going to hang so many points on the Minnesota defense this week that I don't know, man. I like literally every piece, and 4K is just a good price tag. Like we played him when he was 3,400 and he got us 6 for 80, 11 points. I would take 6 for 80 out of a 4K wide receiver. And he lets you play Eckler, Zeke, Lamar, Tyreek Hill in the same lineup. So I've played with some Bateman stuff in cash. I think it's a little bit thin, but there's nobody else I really like below him. So to answer your question, Regina, you know, Bateman is the lowest I would consider, but I do think it's a little bit thinner. And if I can find a way up to get to Jerry Judy at 5K, that's like where I want to be in my life. Shit, Colt McCoy just going to be checking it down to Rondale if he starts. Yeah, I mean, if Colt McCoy starts, like James Conner is getting like 25 rush attempts. They're not going to let Colt McCoy do anything. And if Colt McCoy starts, the 49ers defense is going to clamp them up. No cap. No boost. No shot. No shot we're playing any Arizona Cardinals if Colt McCoy is in. Come on, bro. Absolutely not. And I think that is almost everything that I had to say here. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I had a couple more notes. Don't mention James Conner on this YouTube channel. Bro, James Conner? No, I'm not going to do it. I'll honor your wishes, buddy. You know, if you were here, you would be telling me not to. Okay. Let me get back on track here. Let me tell you a little story about Rashad Higgins, okay? He's leverage off of Jarvis Landry, first of all. He will see an expanded role with no Odell Beckham. He's been targeted when he's on the field. Baker Mayfield actually likes Higgins here. He's cheap as hell, 3,400. DPJ is questionable. He may or may not play. If he does play, I think that it may take Higgins out of play. But if he doesn't, then Higgins is literally the wide receiver 2 on this team. like I said, leverage off of Landry. And the fun fact about Higgins is that in this exact same matchup last season, when Odell Beckham went down, he popped off 6 for 110. 6 for 110. Come on. Not saying that's going to happen just because it happened against the Bengals, but I like it a lot. What are my rankings for the 4.8 to 5.5 wide receivers? Okay. 4 cash games, and I'm going to start off by expanding it because I think that the conversation actually goes up to 5.7. So I'm going to include Cooper and Waddle in here because they're in that price range and they're very viable. So ranking these guys, number 1, Amari Cooper. Number 2, T. Higgins. Number 3, Jerry Judy. Number 4, Jarvis Landry. Number 5, Kadarius Toney. Number 6, Jalen Waddle, and then like Hunter Renfrow, like deep. But like Renfrow just has no ceiling, and like the fact that people want to play him because Henry Ruggs is out makes no sense to me. Like they're the exact opposite type of player. Maybe, some of that 14% target share that Ruggs is leaving behind gets spread to Renfrow, but like why? Like if anything, it's just going to be like an extra target or 2 for Bryan Edwards. No shot we're playing Hunter Renfrow. Absolutely not. So I feel like I've covered pretty in depth everybody that I think is viable in cash games. I've talked about some of my favorite tournament plays in Justin Jefferson and Mike Williams. I briefly mentioned CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee Lamb is like the GOAT leverage play this week. We have one every week where there's some chalk, and this week specifically, 2 of the chalkiest plays on the slate are on Dallas. We've got Amari Cooper at wide receiver, going to be stone chalk. We've got Ezekiel Elliott, going to be the chalkiest running back on the slate. CeeDee Lamb, nobody's going to be in this price range. Like, come on, dude. CeeDee is the absolute GOAT in terms of leverage. Stone cold. GPP lock. Toney over Judy and Landry, no cap. That is cap, though. I mean, okay, I could see you maybe making the case for Landry, but Jerry Judy is just like legit so talented, and they're going to get pushed so hard to be pass heavy in this spot. He tied for the team lead in targets after missing 6 weeks. He's going to be another week healthier. I don't know, man. If what you're saying is true, if it's Toney over Judy, then I'm going to be living on the streets after tomorrow because I'm going to have 0 Toney and I'm going to have a ton of Judy. So I really hope that you are wrong in that assessment. Just scroll through the list, see if there were any other points I wanted to make. Oh, yeah, Marquise Brown coming off of a 14-target week, projecting for under 10% ownership. Perfect stack partner with Lamar Jackson, helps you, lower the cumulative ownership of your Lamar Jackson lineups. Yeah, I think that that's pretty good. I think that that's pretty good at 6K. Just saying. And yeah, I think I've hit on literally every wide receiver that I'm remotely considering. So we can move on to tight end here. Let me just look something up here. Albert Wilson? No. Look at this man. You want to know what a stone cold lock and cash games looks like? It looks like this. Look at this man. Look at that handsome little smile. You know what that smile looks like? That smile looks like somebody who's going to 5x their 2.6K salary. That looks like the smile of someone who's probably going to put up between 8 and 12 DraftKings points and just absolutely fly towards the money. 100%. You're locking this man into your cash games, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. Okay? Absolute stone cold lock in cash. There's literally no other player that I think is in consideration. The price is so high. The ownership is going to be so high. You're just asking to lose if you fade him. Okay? And, even if the ownership is like 75% in cash games, that means that 25% of people are giving up free EV by not playing him. The edge is not dead. Okay? If you're sharp enough to be watching this stream right now at almost midnight on a Saturday, you're probably sharp enough to know that Albert O is a stone cold lock for cash games. Any Devontae Booker love, I would argue that he's safer than Gaskin. Devontae Booker, who is priced right in that same range, 5,900. Yes, I agree that he is safer. I agree that his workload is better, and I agree that his snap share is better. But no, I have no interest in him for cash games because I think the wide receivers are better. Like, I would rather play Marquise Brown for $100 more. Obviously, I would rather play Cooper or Waddle in a 4 wide receiver build. And like, I just don't see myself. I'm not playing 3 running backs. And like we already kind of talked about, the 2 guys who I think you almost have to play this week. I mean, Zeke's stone cold lock, and I think Eckler's maybe like a slight tier below that just because of the price. But I don't know. I'm not going to be playing any Devontae Booker. And in tournaments, I think I guess I don't know what his updated ownership projection is. Take a quick look at that. Take a gander. Yeah, that's what I thought. Booker's going to be too highly owned to go there in tournaments. I would rather just punt it off to Zach Moss if I'm trying to get freaky and play somebody sub 6K. Anyways, back to tight end. Like I said, you're playing Alberto in cash and moving on, but things get crazy when you start thinking about tournaments, because what he allows you to do in your lineups this week is so valuable. However, he's legitimately going to be like 35% plus owned in large field tournaments. In small field stuff, like he's probably over 50%. Like I would honestly project him to be like 50 to 55% in smaller field, higher dollar tournaments. And at that point, you're getting a player like, say, Tyler Conklin for only $400 more. Tyler Conklin probably beats Albert O in like half of the times that these games would play out over time. So if you're getting Conklin in a smaller field tournament at a fifth of the ownership, say Conklin's like 10% and Albert O is like 50. That's literal leverage all day, every day. If we didn't have Albert O, Tyler Conklin would be the stone chalk this week. And he's just not going to be, because it's either Albert O or people are going to be paying up to different price ranges to get different. So Conklin to me is like the direct line pivot where you don't have to change, the core build, the best build, but you can still get a pretty good ceiling. Baltimore's gotten dominated by tight ends all year. And so I'm interested in Conklin. Feel like we're going to get 30-point Darren Waller at his lowest price all season. Yeah, goddamn. On the podcast this week, we talked about, the easiest ways to get leverage on the field. Right here is how you do it. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller. No thanks on Kyle Pitts. I don't like that game. Mark Andrews for sure is in a great spot. You're automatically getting very different by not playing Albert O regardless. And then by paying up to tight end and skipping some of these other guys who are going to be popular, like Gasicki and Goddard. I love it. I absolutely love it. Darren Waller for sure is a smash play this week. Favorite stack for GPPs this week. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I think that the 2 that I'm going to have the most exposure to are Lamar Jackson, because even though he's pretty chalky, his stacking partners are not. So you can get away with playing him and playing guys like Marquise Brown at under 10%, playing guys like Mark Andrews at under 10%. And you're like, the cumulative ownership of your lineups are going to be really low. Like Rashad Bateman's not going to be owned either, and he's cheap and he's a good play, like I mentioned before. So Lamar definitely going to be one of my most owned players in tournaments. And then secondly, I love the Dallas stuff because I think you can get really interesting by playing guys like CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. Like, you can also play Amari Cooper, but if you double it up with Dalton Schultz, or if you double it with Lamb and Cooper to Dak Prescott, you're getting supreme leverage off of Zeke chalk. And if you want to get crazy and just like fade both of them, and Dak Prescott smashes with 2 touchdowns to CD and 1 to Dalton Schultz, like, just imagine how much leverage you're getting on the field with every touchdown that those guys catch. Cooper and Zeke are not getting those touchdowns. It just makes all the sense in the world from a game theory perspective. So Dak Prescott, just, for that reason. Looks like James Robinson out for tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. The Jags are a full fade for me. Literally every Jaguar. Favorite GPP stack. I literally just said it, but I will say it again because you said you like our content earlier. And for that, I'll always remember you. My favorite stack is Dak Prescott. I love the Dak doubles. CD and Dalton Schultz, supreme leverage off of Zeke and Amari Cooper, chalk, and even mixing in one of those guys with Amari Cooper, if you do want to play him because he is a great play, I think is super interesting, and not a lot of people are going to be doing it. So, yeah, Dak just for the leverage, and Lamar Jackson because we have very low-owned partners to stack him with, and Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, and Rashad Bateman. Those are my two favorites. Tight end. Just finishing it up real quick, I mentioned that we like the high-end guys this week. Mark Andrews is my favorite of the group. Darren Waller's interesting. This seems like it could be a blow-up spot. Could be an emotional game with all the Henry Ruggs drama. They're coming off of their bye. They probably thought about, like, dude, we haven't really gotten him involved. Like, he hasn't had a monster game since week 1 where he just blew up, had 19 targets, went 10 for 105 and 1. It's all been pretty mediocre since then. I think with Ruggs gone, with the drama, with the emotion going on with this Raiders team right now, I think they're going to lean on their best players. And on the offense, that's Darren Waller. Derek Carr is going to have to pass the ball somewhere. I think it's going to be to this guy. The other two players that I like at tight end, Gesicki, Goddard, they're going to be like middling chalk. Like, they're not going to be stone cold chalk, but they're going to have ownership. Like, they're not going to be sneaky, which is why I like the Dalton Schultz stuff for tournaments, because he's going to get underlooked. Jared Cook is kind of interesting if you're maybe playing like a Justin Herbert double. You want to stack, Cook and Mike Williams. I've built some stuff with that I think is interesting. And Conklin for sure, a good bring back to go with your Lamar Jackson stacks that gets you off the Albert O chalk, which is also important because if you're playing Lamar Jackson, who's going to be the highest owned quarterback, you can't play Albert O in a lineup like that where he is going to be the highest owned tight end / player on the slate. Booker and Waller correlation will have my pants all the way off tomorrow if it hits. Yeah, make sure that you keep your pants on until you leave the Panthers stadium. I don't want to see you getting, arrested by security, streaking across the field nude because, Devontae Booker scored 2 touchdowns. Okay, I need you back on the podcast this week, buddy. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time to get them. I have been talking for like an hour straight. My voice hurts. I opened this beer and never took a sip of it because, I don't know. It's weird, man. I don't like the solo stream. I miss my boy Joey. I miss being able to sit here and vape and smoke while he talks. And I can just vibe out and read the chat. I have to do all the talking here. This is trash. I need to sip in my beer. I didn't bring my DFS Dose t-shirt, though, to rep the brand. You're a stone cold seller, dude. Cooper and Cook or Higgins and Kamara? That's close. That is very close. Wow, let me think about that. I think my lean would be Cooper and Cook. But Ricky, if you're still in the chat, can you tell me if you're talking tournaments or cash games? Because I think it's a different answer. If it's cash games, I think that it's Higgins and Kamara. If it's tournaments, I think it's Cooper and Cook. So I guess that's the answer. Joey, if you're still in the chat, buddy, Jared wants to know who are your cash locks at wide receiver this week. I mean, I could tell you, Jared, but I'll let him do it. But I know Joey's on the same page with me that Amari Cooper and T. Higgins are the top 2 plays on the slate. But maybe Joey's in the chat as well. I don't think he is, Jared. I think that he is preparing to run butt ass naked across the Carolina field. I don't know what that field is called. I wish I did, but yeah, man. How's everybody's weekend? Shout out to the people chilling in the chat with me at midnight, on a Saturday evening. You guys are the real MVPs. I appreciate you guys. I really do. I feel like I've touched on just about everything that I need to. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time to get them in. Yeah, I'm really excited for this week, dude. Like, there's so many different options. There's so many good plays. And there's so many different ways that you can construct. There's been the most versatility in the way that you can construct good lineups than in any other week this year, because like there's viable plays at all ranges. Joey has an answer. Cooper and Higgins most likely locks. His rankings for wide receiver after that: Kadarius Toney, Jerry Judy, Jarvis Landry, Hunter Renfrow. Might switch to Judy after what Ben said. Don't know if I like 2 Broncos in cash. Like, yeah, that's valid. Absolutely. But would you rather have 2 Broncos or 1 Giant? I ask you that. Something to think about. Something to think about. Listen, guys, I don't want to say goodbye, but I think it might be time to say goodbye. I don't know what else to talk about here. I got through all my talking points. I've talked about the best ways to get leverage on the slate. I've talked about the players I like in cash and in tournaments. Hang on. I got a little, don't go anywhere. Got my boy Joey coming in with some hot knowledge. Cowboys D has been good, and Judy is still coming off an injury that hinders his production even when healthy, but the game environment could be good if the Broncos keep pace. Yeah. I mean, I think the game environment is significantly better, personally. From a Vegas perspective, I don't actually think that it's like too different. Let me take a look here. We have a total of 49 for Dallas Denver. We have a total of 46.5 for the Raiders. Raiders are traveling cross country. I don't know. I think that it's a better spot indoors for, Jerry Judy in a trailing game script. Kadarius Toney is also coming off of an injury, for what it's worth. I mean, this dude has been like on and off injured the entire year. So, I mean, nobody's 100%, but I think that Judy is like going in the right direction, and Kadarius Toney's probably still healing, and they're just forcing him out there because they have like no pass catchers right now. And yeah, I don't know. Could be a sneaky shootout, honestly. If the game goes 38-31 or something like that, I could see it winning GPPs. I think that he's talking about the Raiders game, not the Dallas game, right? Are you talking about the Dallas game or the Giants game? Because I could definitely see it with the Dallas game. I don't see the Derek Carr versus Daniel Jones Bowl winning tournaments. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cowboys, Broncos. I agree. The 3 games that I'm most interested in game stacking this week are Baltimore, Minnesota, number 1, Dallas, Denver, number 2, and then Chargers, Philly, number 3. Those are the games that are going to be my core game stacks, and then work in some correlated plays and one-offs from some of the other spots that are interesting on the slate. All right. That's going to be it for the late night Saturday night live stream. I seriously do appreciate everybody tuning in, listening to me rant for an hour straight. You guys are the absolute goats. If you're watching this on replay, drop a like on the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We've been picking up subs every single week. You guys are like the absolute best. Truly appreciate you. And next week we'll be back. I know we've been, little bit off of our consistency the past couple of weeks. Like, we had to do a Friday stream last week because I was traveling to Mexico. We had to do, this stream solo because Joey's in Charlotte. After that, next week, every Saturday, we're back on our schedule. So make sure you tune in. It'll be great. We'll both be back next week. Joey, I'm winning the Millie Maker tomorrow. I hope so, dude. I'm a little skeptical because I know you're going to be building your lineups on your phone in a hotel room in Charlotte instead of, at your setup on your computer grinding the way that we usually do. But best of luck to you, buddy. I hope that you get second place right behind me. Hardman too thin for cash, or pay the extra 100 for Bateman. I mean, I would go Bateman. Like I said, I don't want to necessarily advocate Bateman. Like, I might play Bateman in cash because I really like a build that I have where Bateman fits. I don't know if I think Bateman's a great play. It's almost like I'm taking a risk on him, and it's like a risk that I'm willing to take because I'm a more risk adverse player. But I don't know if I feel super strongly about advocating it to people because it is very thin. So like, I don't want to make a thin, piece of advice to people and them get, upset if it doesn't work out. Just know that it's thin if you are making that play. understand your own risk tolerance. I like my risk tolerance. I might play Bateman, but that's just me. Not everybody's built like me. Building my lineups while I do boots on the ground reporting. Oh, yeah. By the way, guys, join the DFS Dose Discord channel. I know I was trolling Joey a little bit for, driving 11 hours to see Mac Jones and Sam Darnold face off in what is going to be one of the most boring games all year. But with CMC returning, Joey's going to have some exclusive reporting, seeing what CMC's pregame workouts look like. Very valuable. DFS Dose Discord. It's free to join. Okay. Join it. The link is below. All right. And subscribe to the channel. Okay. And that's going to be it, man. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back with a new episode of the DFS Dose podcast on Monday, recapping everything that happened in week 9. I hope you guys have a profitable week. Hope you guys have an enjoyable weekend. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for